Welcome everyone. My name is Divya Pawar and I am a training coordinator at Temple Small Business Development Center. We help small businesses start and grow, and we are doing this through consulting over the phone or through Zoom and with a robust calendar of training events. You are here for the website planning series, What Should You Put on Your Website? In this workshop, we'll walk through the steps to create compelling content for your site that answers your users' questions and convinces them to take the next step. This webinar will be presented by Jen Wells. She's BrandSwan's co-founder and marketing director, and she streamlines company operations, creates strategic plans to help small business clients achieve their goals. For the webinar, we have all the attendees muted, and we encourage you to put your questions in the chat or the Q&A. All attendees will receive follow-up materials after the presentation. With that, I will turn the floor to Jen.
Thank you so much, Divya, and welcome everyone. I am so excited to go through this with you today. Since you already know who I am, I will go ahead and share my screen and we can just get started. So today we are going to talk about websites. You have a website and then you realized, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to put on it. I don't know what people are looking for. That's okay. This is the right place for that. Quick background to kind of add on to what Divya said. I am the co-founder and marketing director of BrandSwan. We are a branding, web design, and marketing agency. I personally am obsessed with analytics and numbers, and that's why I'm leaning more into the marketing and the web analytics lately. I am a reformed perfectionist. I am obsessed with efficiency. And I am a mother of two. I have dogs. I read obsessively, and I also offer free consultations. You'll receive this presentation later. So anything in here that you see as a button or a link, you will be able to click to follow up with me. So check for those resources throughout the presentation. BrandSwan is a fairly new company. We actually got started this past year, and it was kind of in response to the pandemic. Our story isn't anything too spectacular, but two friends, we each were running our own businesses, and then the pandemic hit. And I was a solopreneur. I was running a business all by myself. And I realized, wow, a solopreneur business is really fragile. Kids are home, everything's shut down. My clients want phone calls during the day, and I can't handle that by myself. So that was kind of my side of it. I started working more and more with my friend Jane, and we realized this partnership was a really good thing. We each had skills the other one didn't have. She brought in the creativity. She had a lot of resources. I'm the super organized, hyper efficient one. So I'm like, all right, we need to time track. We need to put everything in bullet points. We need to analyze. And together we've had some really good growth over the last 9 months. We focus on working with small businesses and some nonprofits. And we really work to show them and show their clients the awesome that they already have. That was a theme that kept coming up for us when we were planning our business. And that's why our tagline is reveal your inner awesome, because everyone is doing something cool already. And either they don't realize it or they don't know how to convey it to their clients. A little more background on us here, but I'm not going to talk too much more about us because I know you're here to learn. Last thing, I think everyone knows it's Women's History Month. In honor of Women's History and just kind of celebrating that, we're doing a series where we showcase some of the inspiring ladies that we've met or that were nominated for the series. This is just an example of one, and I have a link at the back if anybody wants to check that out and enjoy learning about some of the inspiring women who are making history right now, starting with Shah Berde, who was one of my favorite interviews so far. All right, getting into the reason that you're here today. What is the point of a website? And I feel like too many people think, oh, I need a website. So they go to Squarespace, they go to Wix, they go set one up, but they don't stop to think about, what am I doing with it? Why am I building this thing? What is it supposed to accomplish for me? And getting into that, websites are a great tool. They're a really strategic tool that when used properly, will funnel all of the leads that you're getting when you're networking, when you're on social media, when you're sending mailers out. They're a great place to collect all of that and then send people the direction that you want them to go. But they need to be set up correctly, and they need to include certain key criteria. So this is kind of an outline of what your website should address, what should be included in the content. You need to make sure that you're answering your target audience's questions. So they're out there on Google and they're searching for something to help them with a goal or solve a problem. And that answer to that question is what's going to bring them to your website in the first place. You need to address potential obstacles to conversion. If they see that you have a solution for them, what are going to be the common obstacles that are going to stop them from buying or stop them from working with you, and make sure that you address them, or that you lay out which kind of clients are the best for you, so people know if this is a good fit or not. And then once you've got them sold on the service, you've addressed their potential objections, you need to show them what makes you different from your competitors. Why work with you and not with someone else? And then the last thing is the clear to action, or the call to action, which too many websites forget, right? They lay out all this great content. We're amazing. Okay, you want to work with us. What next? How do people get started? So making sure that every single page, not just the contact page, but every single page has some kind of call to action or something that people can click on that will take them further through the site. Every page should have a purpose and every page should have a call to action. So this might feel like a step back, but it's going to be really difficult to write copy for your website if you don't know who you're talking to. So I always start with target audience, and it doesn't matter if we're doing branding, web design, or marketing, we always start here. So make sure that you know who your audience is, what their challenges are, and then again, those obstacles to conversion and the questions that they're asking. You want to make sure that you're answering those questions and addressing those obstacles. Oh, and again, this is another freebie resource that we have on our website. So when you get this PDF, you can click that link and you can fill out your own target audience worksheet. This is the one that we use for ourselves and for clients. So pretty much every resource we have has been vetted by us. It's part of our process. So assuming that you fill that out, you know who your audience is, now you can start thinking about what they want to know when they visit your website. So every single page, you can think about, okay, when they're visiting this page, why are they clicking about? Why are they clicking on this service? What do they want to know about us or about the service when they're here? So each page has kind of a main purpose. Then on that page, you lay out, here's the different questions I think my, target client, or if you're a nonprofit, maybe it's a constituent, that person, when they visit the page, I think these are the questions they're going to have. Break those questions into relevant categories or patterns, right? So like a research paper, each paragraph has a purpose or a topic. Those will be the sections on the page. And then after you've written your first draft, edit, 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 or trim, because even more so than traditional writing, you don't have a lot of time to capture someone's interest on the web. People are, they've got 20 tabs open, they're doing their research, they're comparing against each other, and they're just skimming. So you want to use bullets, you want to keep things short, you want to say things in the shortest way possible. We could talk more about using keywords, but I think that's a whole separate topic. So as long as you're writing for your audience and you're writing to answer the questions that they're asking, you're probably including keywords in an appropriate way without even knowing it, because Google wants to provide useful content to its users. So if you're providing useful content, then you're already doing the right thing. On the right of this slide is kind of a sample formula that I've seen a lot of. This is actually for like a landing page or a sales page, but it works for service pages too. The promise is the result that you're, like what the value proposition, what's in it for them, what are they going to get if they use your service. The problem shows that you understand where they are now and what they're aiming to achieve. The solution is what you do, whether that's a product or a service. The outcomes is what their life is going to look like after it happens, as opposed to the problem, which is what their life looks like now. Social proof is the people who have already used the product. That could be testimonials, that could be case studies, but Other people have used it, like it, and recommend it. People want to be reassured by knowing that this is recommended by someone. And then again, that call to action, very important. It needs to be on there. If this looks a little long, and sometimes it can be if you don't keep your words short, you can include multiple calls to action, even if it's something as simple as get started and it links them to the form at the bottom. The actual call to action is the form, but there's a button to keep them from losing interest when they have to keep scrolling. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the actual content questions template that we use with our clients. And I'm also going to check if we have questions, which it looks like we don't. Okay, feel free to drop questions. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat, and Divya will interrupt me if needed. But yeah, this is the secret sauce. This is what we use here at Brands One. So when we're working with our clients, we have a couple questionnaires they'll fill out before this. And sorry, I just got distracted by the chat. So at this point, we should know what the sitemap's going to look like, right? So we talk about different businesses, different organizations. They might need different pages in their website, but we want to put the sitemap here. And so these are kind of some standard ones: home, services. Maybe there's a couple different services that you want to have in a drop down, about, contact. There might be completely different things in here that are specific to your industry or what you're doing, but this is just an easy way to see it all visually. And then as you go down through it, we have each page. You can see this over here. This is Google Docs. It makes it really easy to jump around in the document to different pages. So under the home page, these green sections, each of those is the section and the purpose. So at the very top of the page is the primary call to action. What's the big thing? What's going to catch people's interest? What's going to keep them from closing out and moving on to another website? And then these are the questions that we ask here. So what's the most compelling thing you can think of? What's your tagline? What's a one-liner? Like, what's something we can put here to capture their interest? Okay, and I do see a question. I'm going to go through the homepage and then I'm going to answer that. The next section under that. So most people who are coming to your website for the first time are not going to say, oh yes, that's me, schedule that consultation. They're going to keep scrolling, and that is okay. That section is just there for the people that know they want to convert right away. So the next most important thing is the value proposition. What's in it for them? So you need to tell them what they're doing there and why they care. And I think this is hard for people because they are so invested in their own businesses. It's hard for them to put themselves in someone else's shoes, someone who doesn't know them yet, who doesn't have the level of interest. But when people don't know you yet, you have to, you just have to be brutally honest with yourself. People are not going to care about this until they've read a little bit more, until they've learned more about me. Like you have to sell because they don't know you yet. They're not invested in you yet. Hopefully they will be, but don't assume someone will care just because you do. So always ask yourself, what's in it for them? That's what other people are asking. So again, this is kind of an overview of that landing page formula that we had. But what is their problem? What are you going to do to solve it? What will their business look like after you solve it? A lot of times, if you have an elevator pitch that you're using networking, this is a great place for that, assuming that you keep it short and you're not one of the people that has a 5-minute elevator pitch. Once you've told them the value proposition, now it's time to kind of elaborate on those solutions that you mentioned above. And so typically this is where you'll see like columns with the 3 services or the 3 packages or whatever it is that you're offering. If you have a lot of things, maybe this looks like a list of icons or even a bulleted list. This really just depends on your industry. If you have a shop, this is maybe a gallery of products and then see all or shop more. Underneath of that is that social proof that we talked about. Do you have testimonials? Do we have case studies we can link to? It really just depends what you're able to track. Sometimes metrics are hard to get because your clients aren't tracking them. So how are you supposed to track their results? But testimonials are easy. You can collect them through Facebook. You can collect them through Google reviews. You can even just email your clients and ask them to say something nice about you if they enjoyed the experience. And then at the very bottom of the homepage, secondary call to action. And what that means is The homepage really serves as the guide to kind of navigate you through the rest of the website. So we want to make sure that there's a little taste of everything. They're learning a little bit about who you are, what you offer. A lot of times you can put a little about me blurb, so here's a few things you need to know about the business. And then that links to the about page. And then whatever other resources you have, right? Maybe that's your blog. Maybe that's events that you have coming up. But if you have something else in your marketing strategy, make sure that that has a place on the homepage, even if it's at the very bottom. This is a good place for, like they've made it all the way to the bottom, which means that they're not diving right into your content. So maybe they're not quite at this spot in the funnel yet. Maybe they're further up. So give them those resources that you would give to people who just met you on social media or just met you at a networking event. Okay, so going into questions, how do you find out what your target audience's questions are? Which is a great question. And I feel like a lot of people are just guessing, but the best way to find out is to talk to them. I did market research a few years back. And what I did was I asked people to do a coffee date with me and just trade, right? Like, let me pick your brain a little bit about what, small businesses are looking for, what nonprofits are looking for, and then I'll let you pick my brain about websites, or here's some free branding advice. I think it's as simple as meeting up with people and just asking a few questions. So I think, and maybe I'm trying to figure out how to format it, because you don't go up to someone and say like, what are your questions? But you could say, what are your pain points? You could say, how do you search for solutions? And maybe they'll say Google. Maybe they'll say, I ask on Facebook. You could ask them, what's a time recently that you were looking for help with something? And how did you look for it? What did you say? We always ask people when they do find us online, how they found us. And that way we know what their search words were on Google, which is really helpful. Second question, if you are a new business without testimonials, is there anything you can use in place of those to help sell your services? And I don't know that there's a direct replacement for testimonials. Because, you could do, it requires someone to give input. But if you're collecting testimonials for the first time, if you don't have a lot of clients yet, you can take on, I don't want to say practice projects. I don't know what kind of business you have, so this is difficult, but say it's service-based and you're getting started. Maybe you work with a friend, or maybe you work with someone at a discounted rate just to get a case study under your belt. And that's maybe how you get your first testimonial. Or if you don't have any, it's okay if you don't have testimonials for your website, but make sure you set up a system to start collecting them once you start getting clients. So totally understandable that you might not have them starting off, but they are very helpful if you start collecting them as soon as you do have clients. Okay, jumping back into this kind of formula that we have here. So that was the homepage, and I kind of glossed over this, but I'll actually jump over here real quick. Each page has a purpose, and I think of the homepage as the sitemap for the whole website. It kind of guides people through the website. It gives them a taste of what's on all the other pages, and it shows them which things they want to learn more about. The other pages have a more specific purpose usually. They're just trying to do one thing. They're not trying to be the map to everything else. So the service pages, ideally they're going to be focused on just one service. Or if you have a group of services, or products is a lot easier. You have a gallery. And then the about page. So you've sold them on your product or service on the services pages. The about page is the opportunity to sell them on you, on your organization. More and more people want to know who they're buying from. They want to make sure that their values align with yours. So it's, you can skip this page, but I definitely don't recommend it. And then the contact page, which is usually really boring. It's usually just a form and an email. It doesn't have to be. There are a lot more interesting things you can do with that to make them excited to get started with you. So we can move into the content questions for those pages. Real quick question from Annette. How do you set up a system to collect testimonials? I can tell you what we do. We have a Google business page, and there's a very easy way to collect reviews through that. So our offboarding system for every client, they get 3 follow-up emails. And the first one is, here's any final deliverables, like maybe it's a login to their website, or maybe it's, their style sheet for their logo. Here's the final deliverables. We loved working on this project with you. If you enjoyed it as much as we did, could you please leave us a review on Google? And it has the link for them to make it really easy to go there. And then the second email shows them, hey, we've added you to our design collection. Here, here's the preview of your project in our portfolio. And by the way, if you didn't already leave us a review, you can do that here. So we ask twice. And then we have a couple other follow-up emails that are for, upselling and cross-selling, which are not super relevant to this. But if you don't have a Google business page, you can do other things. You can use a Facebook page. You're allowed to do, or you're able to do reviews on there. You can make a form in Google Forms or even SurveyMonkey, and you can send that out for people. And that's a great, that is a great way to ask specific questions and solicit feedback as well. If you wanted to do like a how are we doing kind of thing. I will tell you that when people are answering questions like that, it's a lot harder to format their answers into a testimonial, because you'll say something like, what did you enjoy about working with us? And they'll say, everything, it was great. And then that's going to look kind of lame on your website. So that's part of the reason that we have separated testimonials from soliciting feedback. We do them as separate things because we want people to write it as a testimonial and not just answer questions and then try to fit something, a square peg into a round hole. And then of course, email. Like, you're not tech savvy, you don't want to use some kind of third-party system. Literally just email people afterwards and ask them if they're willing to say something about your company. You'd be surprised how many people are. I think there's this fear of asking, and most people, if they had a good experience with you, if they had a good experience with you, they're going to be happy to do that for you. Okay, someone says, I thought Google reviews were copyrighted and so not able to be picked up and used on your website. I will be honest, I have never heard that before. So I can't say for sure that that is not true. I would be really surprised, but I will look that up. And I will have, if they're willing to, I'll have the Business Development Center send out the answer after I've researched that. So interesting point, and I'm sorry I don't know the answer. I hope they're not copyrighted because I know a ton of people who are doing it. Okay, so going back into the page formulas, services, and this could also be a product, but I wrote these based around the idea of a service-based business. This is the problem, solution, outcomes, call to action. So you want to answer not just what is the problem, but also, how is it negatively impacting them? If you're, say, maybe a life coach, then it's going to be a very personal answer, like maybe they lack confidence or they don't feel good about themselves. If it's, a bigger corporate business, then it's probably going to be more about finances and money or corporate culture, like employees aren't happy, we have high turnover. So this really depends on your target audience, how personal that's going to be, whether it's going to be about the company or about the individual. And then how does it make them feel? And this is one where the target audience is very important because, again, if you're talking to a person about their life, yes, you can embellish those feelings. You want to talk about how frustrated you are right now and how you wish your life was different. You wish you had more discipline, whatever it might be. If you're talking to a company, then maybe you're skipping this question entirely because it's not about feelings, it's about the bottom line. It totally depends on the audience. And that's where you need to know who they are so that you can adjust questions like this so that they fit that particular situation. They want to know what your solution is going to be, how it's going to help them. And then this is the key differentiator that we kind of talked about. Why is this solution better than other solutions? Why are you better than competitors? And also just one problem might have 10 different solutions that are all a little bit different. So as much as I hate to use like the weight loss example, That could be, like a fitness plan. That could be a nutrition plan. That could be some kind of surgery. There are a ton of different ways to address that. So you want to tell them what's special about this particular way of coming at the problem, and then what makes you the best provider of that solution. Outcomes, what is their life going to look like? How is it going to be better? Social proof, if you have any, and the call to action. Always, always, always call to action. This one is easy because it's, book the service, free consultation, get started. I think people have more trouble with putting a call to action on the about page, but it doesn't even have to be different. It could be get to know us better in this free consultation, right? You could tailor it towards the team or the organization and still have a very similar or the same call to action. The about page. I think this is one where a lot of people get stuck because they have trouble imagining what someone might want to know about them. And I think it's a combination. They want to know that you're a real company, and that's why we include this background. Tell them how your company got started, tell them what makes you fun, different, unique. And they also want to know about your values. They want to make sure they're going to feel good about the experience of working with you, and they want to make sure that you're going to treat them right. So that's why we have both of these sections here. The team is a great way to personalize it if you have a bigger group or a bigger team. Sorry, the chat again. But if it's just one person, then maybe it's an about the owner snapshot, or if you want to make your company look bigger than it is and you don't want to admit that it's only one person or only two people, you can skip this entirely and you can just make it about the company. One interesting question I've had from people who are solopreneurs or they're single person businesses is, should I say I or we? And I think that really depends on your target audience, same as everything else. Do they want the comfort of working with a bigger company, or do they like the idea of the personalized attention they're going to get if it's just one person? And everyone has different opinions about that. Case studies, always important. If you have really elaborate case studies with metrics and analytics, then they might be their own pages. Otherwise, they might just be testimonials tucked in on the other pages. And then the contact page. So your contact page does not just have to be a form. If you are trying to get people to do consultations with you, this is a great place for a scheduling tool. It can be a more detailed form that lets them know, like, hey, there's some criteria to meet with us, not just anyone can do it. That will also help weed out the spam, because you are, no matter what, spam blockers or ad blockers you use, you're going to get some form submissions that are not real people or that are salespeople trying to sell you things. But if you make it clear that, hey, you need to be a real person, I need to know about you, or I need to know about your business, and you add a couple extra fields, that's a good way to weed those out. But be careful about adding too many, because if you get to the point where, oh, this is going to take me 10 minutes to fill out, people won't do it. Another, that's kind of one reason that we prefer the scheduling tool, because we don't see a lot of spam or salespeople signing up for that, because they know they're going to have to be in a video call with us. So that's more effort than they're looking for. But for the people who legitimately want to learn more about us and might want to work with us, that scheduling tool is great, because it only takes a couple minutes to set up an appointment with us. And if you are interested in that and don't know where to get started, Acuity is a great tool. Calendly is a great tool. We use 17 Hats, but that's a lot bigger, because that's also invoicing and bookkeeping and just general customer onboarding. So there are a ton of great tools out there. Some ideas for things to include in your contact form, and then make sure you put your own contact information, whatever you want them to use. Some people hide the phone number, some people hide the email. It's all just depending on your preference and what you'll be able to respond to in a reasonable amount of time. Don't put some email address that nobody ever checks, because if you take a week to get back to them, chances are they'll have moved on. Starting to wrap up this presentation. So we kind of looked at this already, the purpose for each of the pages. If you are interested in those content questions and you're not sure where to get started writing them yourself, feel free to head to our website and download. It's exactly this that I've been showing you, this template here. Or, just kind of, you can do this process entirely on your own. You can just map out the formulas and then either talk to your target audience or fill out, some kind of worksheet and think about what they want to know. If you have friends in your target audience, or, you can set up a couple coffee dates, you can get a lot of this information in a pretty short amount of time. So I think most people are just intimidated by the process, but it doesn't have to be as time consuming as it might look like. Okay, and then last slide here, we've got resources and links. So this will all go out to you. You'll be able to access all this stuff. If anybody wants to chat with me more or you have questions, feel free to book with me. This is a free half hour just to pick my brain and brainstorm about your organization. So I am happy to do that. And that's it. Any other questions? I'm going to go back through the chat. Oh, someone asked, is the structure of a website different for selling a product versus selling a service? And I think yes, in some ways. Like, for example, we have 3 services, right? We have branding, web design, and marketing. And each of those gets its own page. And those are long pages because if someone's going to buy a website, they want to know a lot about it. They want to know the design process. They want to know what they're going to get, what all of the itemized breakdown is, versus, if you're selling accessories or you're selling clothing, people really just want the size and the preview images. They don't want all that detail. So that's where you're going to have, more of a grid of products. And maybe you can separate it by categories or types, but you're not going to have a whole page dedicated to each product. Usually, that's not always true.
We have one question in the chat. Can you go back to the screen where you show your contact info, please?
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then just before we just go into Q&A, I have pasted a link to the survey. Please go ahead and fill in the survey because it is required by our funders, the Small Business Administration, so that we can continue provide no cost webinars. And so now we have 3 questions in the Q&A. The first one is, how often should I refresh my website, giving it a fresh look?
Oh, okay. It depends. I think, like there are some website themes that are really clean and simple, and you could probably get away with not updating those for as long. But generally, website trends are changing every couple of years. So at least doing maybe an audit every 2 or 3 years to make sure that your website isn't looking super outdated. And if I don't know what your funding situation is like, you can just look at competitors and see what they're doing and see what your website looks like in comparison to theirs. That's a quick way to get an idea of if you've fallen behind or not. But yeah, I mean, we probably update our website every 6 months, but I don't expect most people to do that. So I think just taking a look every 2 or 3 years to make sure that it's still current.
Okay. Do you have a preference about using a service like Square to create your website versus the alternative?
So we definitely prefer self-hosting and then using WordPress because you can customize so much more. And I think Squarespace is a great way to get started. Was it Square or Squarespace?
Square. They asked about Square.
Okay. I'm actually not familiar with Square, but I'm going to assume it's a CMS like Squarespace or Wix or Weebly. And I think they're really helpful if you don't have the tech skills to get started and you can't hire someone to install it for you. Ultimately, they are going to cost a little bit more than self-hosting because you're paying for the convenience of having that drag and drop interface. But I think if you're going to work with one instead of hosting your own and using WordPress, Squarespace is probably the one I would recommend the most, just because it integrates with the most tools that I know of. And that's one thing that WordPress, it's hard to beat, is there's a plugin for everything. So if you do events on Eventbrite, and you want to have an events calendar on your website, you might have to pay a little bit of money, like $5 a month or something, but there will be a plugin that lets you take those events and put them on your website. Versus, I can't guarantee that some of the other website builders will have tools like that just because their use isn't as widespread. Although I do think Wix is getting pretty good about integrations too.
How do you determine what tabs to make?
Sorry, say that again.
How do you determine what tabs to make?
What tabs?
Mhm.
Like, for the website?
Mhm.
There are some standard ones that we almost always have for client websites. So you need a homepage, you probably need an about page, and then I think your services determine a lot of it. So what services do you offer? How well understood are they? And how many are there? We definitely want to keep the number of links in your top navigation. We want to keep it to 7 if possible. You see those websites that have a lot of drop downs, and then the drop down has a drop down, and it gets confusing. And expecting people to navigate through and find all those links is probably not realistic. So we try to keep websites clean, especially for small businesses. If you're a giant corporation, that might not be possible.
Thank you. Do you use or recommend Divi or Elementor?
Oh, yes, we actually use Divi for everything. And there's a few reasons for that. A lot of our clients with a lower budget, we have some templated packages. So we're just pulling the Divi templates in and we're customizing them and we're adapting it so it matches their brand, but it gives you such a great resource to start without having to build everything from scratch. So you can have a beautiful professional looking site just by using one of their templates. Elementor is a great tool too. I haven't used that one in a couple of years. When I did use it, I found it difficult to do global settings. And when I say global settings, I mean setting the fonts in one place and then they change in the whole website. I had to edit everything in every module, and that was kind of a pain. But again, it's been a couple years and they might have updated that by now. But yeah, both of those tools are really good for getting started and not wanting to learn how to like code websites from scratch, which honestly, I don't think anyone really does anymore.
There's one more question. I have an e-commerce bakery. Is it necessary to have a homepage, and what should be the content?
I mean, you could make the products the homepage, but I think homepages are helpful because they give people that extra information, and it's a good place to put your keywords. Like when people find websites on Google, they usually are finding the homepage. Sometimes other pages are coming up, but the homepage is usually the first because that's the one that has the most content on it. And because Google recognizes that that's, the main part of your site. So I think it's helpful. If you're wondering what to put on it for a bakery, I would still put, maybe it's not a mission statement per se, but what makes your bakery different from other bakeries in the area, right? Why should people come to you and not someone else? Why should they go to you and not like Starbucks? Like I'm sure your product is better, but tell them why. Tell them about the business itself, because people love shopping at cute little family owned restaurants. I don't know if yours is, but you probably have a story and people will probably be more compelled to come and buy from you if they know what that story is. And so maybe that goes on the homepage and not the about page if there's not a lot of information about your organization, or maybe the homepage has mission, about the products, and then if you have testimonials, great, and then stop on by. I don't know what your call to action would be, if you want people to call or if you just want them to come in, if you want them to order online. You said e-commerce, you probably want them to order online. So yeah, so shop now, buy products.
Okay. How much of the personal narrative of the business owner should be on the website?
That really depends. And I hate when I have to answer every question as it depends, but it does. So it depends on what your service is and what your target audience is looking for. So if you are a life coach, then probably a lot. If you're a health or a fitness or a personal coach, they're probably going to want to hear your whole story. Why did you get started with this? What was your transformation that led you into helping other people make similar transformations? But if you're an eye doctor, then maybe you just have a really simple like meet the team page so that people can see some faces and get that comfort and facial recognition, but they don't need to know every medical school that you went to unless you want to showcase that because it took a lot of time out of your life and it's, you know, a prestigious list. But yeah, they probably don't need, you know, your entire LinkedIn profile.
Mhm. Is Divi or Elementor able to be used with WordPress?
Yes.
Okay.
I was gonna say I could elaborate, but the answer is just yes. We use WordPress with Divi installed.
Okay, I think we answered every question. If you have any more questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A. I have also put a link to the resource page where you can learn about our upcoming webinars. So go ahead and check that out. Okay, let's wait for a couple of minutes to see if we have any more questions. Thank you so much, Jen, for this amazing presentation.
Thank
It was
you.
really helpful.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun to put together.
Yeah. Okay, how much does a basic website cost?
That's a surprisingly difficult question to answer. Yeah, it ranges really, really widely. If you're working with a designer, you know, some people are doing websites for a couple $100s and some people are doing them for thousands and thousands. If you are a small business, then you're probably going to be closer to the range that we offer, which is anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000. And that depends how many pages. It depends how complicated the content's going to be. Do you need schedulers integrated? Do you need an events calendar? Do you need a directory? Things like membership portals. People are like, oh, we'll just have a membership site. That is really time consuming and really expensive, and people don't expect that. So it depends what features you need. But say it's a basic 5-page website, you're probably looking at a few $1,000s.
Okay, thank you. I think we answered all the questions. Thank you so much, Jen, and thank you everyone for joining. There's one more question. Do you have any recommendations of where to access keywords for your website?
Yeah, so Google. Google has a keywords planner tool, and it can be a little overwhelming to get in there because you have to make a Google Ads account. But if you're willing to poke around and you have some free time, I would say go ahead and do that. Make a Google Ads account, find the keyword planner tool, and then you can type stuff in and it will give you related keywords. It will tell you how highly searched they are. It will even tell you how much competition there is. So if you can find a keyword that's highly searched that doesn't have a lot of competition, that'll be the one that you want to use, as long as it's actually related to what you do. It can be tempting to use similar keywords, but if people find you and you're not serving the content they were looking for, they're going to leave right away. And the more people that do that, that's your bounce rate. The higher your bounce rate is, the more Google sees that you're not actually that helpful, and you'll actually lose SEO for doing that. So make sure it's relevant.
Okay. Do you give consultation to an existing website?
Yes, that would be a website audit. And that is a lot of fun to do because it's always fun to critique something that's not your own work.
Yeah, so make sure that you reach out to Jen for that. Okay. Okay, so thank you, Jen, for coming in. And thank you everyone for joining. Have a great day. Bye-bye.